You know, for as long as most of us can remember, the world of smartphones has been a two-horse race, right? You're either on Team Android or Team iOS. But what if I told you that a third global player just crashed the party? And they didn't get here through years of friendly competition. Nope, this one was born out of a massive geopolitical crisis. We're talking about Huawei's HarmonyOS.
So let's just jump right in with the headline that sent shockwaves through the tech world. In early 2024, in China, the biggest smartphone market on the planet, something totally wild happened. HarmonyOS hit 17% market share, officially kicking Apple's iOS down to third place. Yeah, you heard that right. A brand new operating system just dethroned a tech giant. So the big question is, how on earth did that happen? This wasn't some flashy, normal product launch. Not even close. This is a story about survival, about a brilliant long-term strategy, and honestly, a huge, huge gamble.
All right, to really get HarmonyOS, we need to rewind the clock a bit. We're going back to a time when this whole thing was just a secret emergency backup plan, a break glass in case of emergency project for a doomsday scenario that, well, actually happened.
Okay, check out this timeline, because this is where it gets crazy. Huawei was secretly working on its own OS all the way back in 2015, but the real trigger, the moment they had to smash that emergency glass, was in May 2019. That's when US sanctions completely cut them off from Google's Android. And get this, just 3 months later, bam, they launched HarmonyOS 1.0. The secret Plan B was suddenly Plan A.
And this quote from a Huawei exec really puts it perfectly. This was never about trying to take on Android, not at first. It was about building a lifeboat in case they got thrown overboard. So you have to understand, this entire OS was born from a defensive move, a response to a threat that could have wiped them out.
Now, in the beginning, a lot of people just wrote HarmonyOS off. They said, oh, it's just a reskinned version of Android. And to be fair, you can see why they thought that. The first versions were built on Android's open source code, what's called AOSP, and that was a deliberate choice to make sure all your Android apps would still work. But that was just on the surface. Underneath, Huawei was playing a completely different game. They were building a system on a totally different architecture, a microkernel, with a vision for a future where your phone, your watch, your car, your TV, they're all talking to each other as one.
But here's the thing. Using that Android code was never the endgame. It was just a temporary bridge. A bridge to something much, much bigger. A complete, total breakaway.
Yeah, this was the real goal, to completely erase Android from the equation, to build their own foundation, something so solid they could delete every last line of Android code and never look back.
And this wasn't an overnight thing. It was a carefully planned multi-year strategy. You see, the first 4 big versions of HarmonyOS used that Android compatibility as a kind of crutch. It made it easy for users and app developers to come along for the ride. But then came HarmonyOS NEXT. And that's when they finally made the leap. They cut the cord, ripped out all the Android code, and stepped out on their own with a totally pure ecosystem.
So what exactly is this HarmonyOS Next? Well, you can think of it as the real HarmonyOS. This is the OS they dreamed of back in 2015. It's built from the ground up on their very own foundation, their own kernel called the Hongmeng kernel. No Android code, no compatibility, nothing. And you have to realize this is a massive gamble. It means your old Android apps, they don't work anymore. Huawei literally had to convince thousands and thousands of developers to rebuild their apps from scratch just for HarmonyOS. That's a challenge that has killed so many new operating systems before.
Okay, and this is where the strategy gets really, really interesting. Because see, from day one, this was never just about phones. It was always about something much bigger, creating this whole universe of devices that are all interconnected.
The core idea you've got to wrap your head around is what they call the super device. It's pretty cool, actually. The idea is you can literally drag and drop the icon of your tablet or your watch or your laptop onto your phone, and they all just merge. They act as one giant virtual device. So you could start typing an email on your phone and then just seamlessly finish it on your laptop's bigger keyboard, or use your tablet screen as a second monitor for your phone. It's all about flow. And the sheer scale of this ambition is, well, it's kind of mind-blowing. We're not just talking about phones and watches here. We're talking about HarmonyOS powering the dashboard in your car. We're talking about it running your smart fridge. They even have specialized versions for super heavy industry, like in coal mines. And yeah, they've launched a full-blown version for PCs too. The goal is pretty clear. One single OS to run basically everything.
Which brings us right back to today. This operating system that was born from a crisis hasn't just survived, it's actually thriving, especially in China.
So what does all this mean for the rest of us, for the rest of the world? So if we zoom out and look at the whole world, HarmonyOS has about 4% of the global market. Now, 4% might not sound like a lot next to the two giants, but think about it. That's enough to make it the solid, undisputed number 3 player on the planet. For the first time in over a decade, the Android-iOS duopoly has officially been broken.
But if we look beyond just phones, the numbers are just staggering. As of late 2024, Huawei is reporting over 1 billion active devices running HarmonyOS. Let that sink in. 1 billion devices in this interconnected ecosystem. And they did it in just a handful of years. That's easily one of the fastest adoptions of a new operating system in tech history. Period.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's this. The two-player game is over. It's done. We now have a third major ecosystem on the field, and it's built on a completely different idea of how all our gadgets should work together. And that leaves us with one heck of a question to think about. Now that we're in a three-way race, what comes next? What new innovations, what new competition, what new alliances are we going to see shape the future of our digital lives?